Hello, how's everybody doing? This is Mickey. Well, here we are in the dead of winter, and we're getting these snow scenes that are kind of a high key, low contrast, and when we take them, they seem to have some feeling and atmosphere to it, but when we look at it in Lightroom, they're just kind of flat and don't really garner any interest. So we're just going to take a few minutes here today and just add a little atmosphere to a photograph and make it pop just a little bit more and give a little more interest to the viewer. On this picture, we're going to start out just from the basics, and really not much to change here. I really don't want to add much exposure. Might take a little contrast away. Whites, we've got to be careful with the whites. Let me turn my J key on so we could see. We don't have a lot of room there, so we'll leave that alone. Maybe add a little blacks and just take the clarity down just a little bit. Now what I do want to do is I want to take the vibrance and the saturation down. I don't want it to be black and white, but I want it to be close to that. So that's why we're taking on the vibrance and saturation. Next I want to crop it, and we'll bring it in about right here, I think. Make it a little bigger, about right here, and straighten it up just a little bit. It doesn't look quite straight. Let's give it a little more tweak right there. And then we want to go to lens correction and use some manual. There's a little pincushion effect in there. I just want to take a little bit of that out, about just like that. Let's look at the horizon. Okay, looks pretty good right there. Now, the first thing that I want to do is I want to go in and I want to put a layer of fog. That's what we're going to be doing here, adding atmosphere and contrast in that atmosphere to make this picture look a little more pleasing to the eye. So I'm going to grab a linear gradient. We're going to start from the bottom, hold my shift key down so we can get a nice even gradient. And we want to start out with effects. I'm going to bring the dehaze down just a little bit and bring the clarity down a little. And also I want to go into my tone curve and grab the bottom black point and raise that up a little bit, and that adds a little misty fog in there too. Now once we get this in place, we can look at our amount slider and decide how much do we really want to put in there, because that's too much. And we want to leave a little bit of view in there, so I'm going to keep it about like that. Alright, next thing I want to do is start adding layers and contrast to this. I'm going to grab a radial gradient. I'm going to start over here on the side. I'm going to keep my middle pin off the canvas because I just want light coming in this way. Maybe I'll make it a little more narrow. I'm going to go to effects and bring my dehaze down just a little bit, bring down my clarity, and again with the curve I'm going to bring up my black point. And we can look at our amount slider and see how much we want in there. So I'm going to keep it about like that for now, and we can grab this and see, does it look better up or down? Do we need to narrow it down to give it a better view? Which I think I will. I have the feather at 100%. But we'll keep it about like that. So now if we look at our before, after, before and after. Alright, so let's grab another radial gradient. And we're going to come in from this side now. We want to add another layer of fog. Might make this one a little higher. And I'm going to go to my effects and bring my dehaze down. Bring my clarity down and go into tone, and let's bring the contrast down just a little bit and increase the exposure so we can about like this. And remember, if we have too much, we always have the amount slider when we use our mask, so we can control it. Let's turn our J key on. Well, leave J key on to see, man, we don't want to blow it out because right there that's too much. And then you can decide, do I want to bring it in more across the scene? And then, let's just see where it would look best. I'm thinking probably about right there. All right, let's look and see where we are right now. Before, after, and after. This bottom, if I could get a little skew, let's bring this up a little bit more and add a little bit more dehaze and clarity to this. Like that. And hit our amount slider to see what looks good. And that's the thing. You put the effect in just a tad bit too much and then control by bringing it back with your amount slider. Be your best bet. Alright, the next thing I want to do is add a little contrast to the sky. We're going to do that with a linear gradient. Hold our shift key down and bring it down about like this. And I'm just going to add just a little negative tone to it about like this. Now I want to control this a little better. I just want it to be a layered effect. So I'm going to hit the subtract and do the same thing, linear gradient. I'm going to start from the top, bring it down about like this. And granted that tone is a little darker than I would like it to be, but right now I'm just trying to decide where I want this layer to be. So this is my subtraction layer. This is the main layer here. So I move this around with the subtraction layer till I get it just about the right level that I want, and that looks good to me. And now I can back off on the exposure just a little bit, like this. And right here you can decide, is this kind of a gloomy day where we have this gloomy layer above, or is this like a highlight layer? We can bring the exposure up, and that's kind of an artistic decision you have to make on your own. I'm feeling more gloomy on this one, so I'm just going to add just a little exposure, and I don't really need to add any clarity. I mean, dehaze, I can. It will help the gloominess a little bit. I'll bring down the clarity a little bit. Let me see what curves would do. It lightens it up a little bit too much. Let me make it a little hazier, and then bring the tone down a little bit more, about like this. So it's just a very faint little gloomy haze over the whole scene, about like this. Next, you can use a radial gradient. Let's kind of hit this tree here, and we're just going to use clarity to make that pop a little bit. We'll add a little positive clarity, and that kind of takes the haze away from that tree. And if you wanted to, you could also use another brush and have it at about 50%. Turn the clarity way up and turn the dehaze up just a little bit. And now we can paint on some of these trees in here. If we want to bring like the top of the tree line with a little more contrast, we can do it like this. And this gives the trees just a little more life than behind that haze there. So if we look at our before, after, let's turn our overlay off. Before, after, and after. Now, right now, this is kind of bothering me. I want this to be lower, about like this, because I don't want these two levels here to really match up. I want one layer to be higher than the other one. So now let's see what that looks like. Before, and after. You can then also grab another radial gradient and just kind of drop one right in here about like this, and just give it a little extra exposure to make some more contrast. And we can do the same thing over here with a longer radial gradient about like this. Maybe give this a little light, maybe make it a little bigger here. About like that. So now let's kill our mask and take a look. Before, after, and after. And if this house is getting kind of washed away, you can put another radial gradient right in there, like right here, about like this, and just take the dehaze up a little bit, will bring that house out a little bit more. Let's move it around and see what we can do here. Something like that. And then if you're really feeling kind of artistic, another thing that I like to do is I grab a linear or radial gradient. We'll do it with a linear. And we'll start here at the bottom again, hold our shift key down and bring it all up. And then we're going to add a lot of dehaze in here, like this. And what we're going to do is paint in the effect that we want. It's kind of like masking a mask. So we put the dehaze in here on this layer. Then we come here, intersect mask with a brush. Now when we do that, let's put the flow excuse me, down just a little bit. And as soon as we touch the photograph anywhere, it takes away the effect that we put in. And now we use our brush to paint in where we want the effect to be. So if you wanted a little more of that fog right in here, you can put it in like this. Down here, you can put some more fog in. You can put some more fog in up here. Just make little swirls like this, and it gives it a kind of a random look to the fog effect. About like this, because all we're doing is painting in what was on the main first linear mask. So if we look at before, and after, and again, because it is a mask, you have this amount slider. You see how we bring in those little areas of patchy fog, and you can just go crazy with this. And then we're doing it kind of quick here, so if you take time, you can really get it realistic with this little patchy fog in addition to these layers of fog that we've put in. Alright, well, I kind of hope this helped out, showing you how we can add a little atmosphere. Let's look at our before and after before we leave. Here's our before, after, before, and after. So we take this scene, which is kind of flat and no real layers to it or contrast, and just throw some atmosphere, some fog in there. One more thing we can do as the whole picture here, let's go up to basic, and we can lower and raise the exposure. Let's look at our contrast and see what that does. We can change our blacks and get, just play with these different sliders, and you can get that looking just the way you want. So let's see, about like that, I think, is the final one. Before, after, before, and after. If anybody has any questions about this or needs any help, be sure to drop me an email, and I'll be glad to help out any way I can. And I will talk to you again real soon.